Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to the 13th module in the series Marketing Management, a VUCA Perspective. We are discussing core concepts, and as we delve deeper into product thinking, design and marketing, I welcome you to join me on this journey. I'm your host and tour guide, Siddhi Bhattacharyya. Now we've been discussing products, we've been discussing product extensions, we've been extending the conversation into portfolio management and such like. Now let's talk about something which is far more intrinsic in terms of the consumer offering. The idea is to make things simple. And in the words of abstract artist Hans Hofmann, he says the ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. Communication does not mean necessarily verbosity. And since communication is central to all forms of marketing, it becomes that much more pertinent and important to understand how to keep the unnecessary pieces of conversation away from anything that has to do with anything marketing. Hence, simplicity. It is the precursor to sensibility. What sensibilities are you taking from the end consumer? How are you understanding them? How are you responding with your marketing activities, and how is it making sense to their worldview? That is time when marketers need to understand that their overzealousness, being product thinkers, can actually create mayhem with too many variants, and this may actually confuse the customer, and there is a sure shot way around it, which is what we'll explore in our conversation today in the fourth in the series of designing value into and managing products. Now, we need to understand when less is more, and this is the art of product assortment. In the world of retail and manufacturing, managers face very critical decision moments when they actually create their product lines and their various portfolios, assortments and such like. And conventional wisdom suggests that you offer extensive variety so that you do not miss any particular possible chance of being able to market your goods over to prospects. However, research reveals a much more nuanced reality. This presentation explores how options help consumers, and at times when overkill happens, that it starts hindering the decision-making process itself. So we'll examine the psychological factors about consumer choice, analyze how successful brands like Apple and Casper have been able to make whatever they did, and provide actionable strategies for optimizing the product assortments based on consumer expertise and the marketing objectives or goals. Now, the convention wisdom is something which needs to be understood first. When you put in too many items to plug in every possible conceivable hole, then you're increasing your flexibility for sure. Now, larger assortments allow consumers to keep their options open and give you greater flexibility when making that particular selection. Limited variety can create feelings of restriction and negativity when very specific niches come across a gap in the entire product offering set. However, when you look at better preference matching, it's just that the likelihood that consumers will find something which is their optimal choice increases when you have more variety. The greater the variety, the higher the chance of matching individual preferences. But then it also starts to hamper other things like economies of scale. Now, when we completely explore the possibilities of product innovation, we look at extensive assortments, and that gives consumers confidence that more or less the brand has fully explored the full range of options before deciding what the consumer can be given. And so therefore, with confidence, the consumer can also buy into a particular product or brand. This builds trust in the understanding of features and benefits from the consumer or prospect end. However, research actually has suggested that there is a paradox of choice. When more becomes less. Why? Because the brain of the human being is only able to process only so much information. Overdoing it will create an overload. Consumers typically choosing from large assortments can get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information, and they need to process this in order to reach that particular endpoint where they take their purchase decision. Smaller assortments help people by requiring them to evaluate fewer options and look at lesser number of attributes, and it makes the decisions less taxing. It becomes less daunting for the end consumer. The choice overload also, when multiple satisfactory options exist, consumers must make those difficult trade-offs. Hence, they look at attributes very, very minutely. The entire decision making process becomes that much more elaborate, and this compounds the decision difficulty beyond just processing the information that is going to be enough for making that decision. Again, the challenges increase for the end consumer or prospect. And then there are high expectations when you're giving them so many different attributes to weigh in and decide what the product is going to be on. Larger assortments can actually lead consumers to find the perfect option, or so they think. And reality, when it fails to meet these elevated expectations, consumers finally have a heartbreak and they walk away without purchasing anything at all, leading to a complete opportunity loss kind of a scenario. So key factors here which must be taken into consideration are expertise and preferences. Now, when it comes to expert consumers, people who have experience with that particular category, these consumers with the necessary product knowledge are able to clearly articulate preferences which benefit from larger assortments. Now, these people can efficiently evaluate multiple options, easily decide the trade-off between benefits and costs, navigate the complex choice environments, and appreciate whatever little subtle differences exist between the products. However, there are not many of these around. There are novices, which are the more plentiful variety. Now, consumers who are unfamiliar with the product category, they lack the clear preferences and struggle with extensive variety. They become overwhelmed by seeing too many options. They have difficulty making the trade-offs. They may actually delay or even put off their purchasing for a longer period, and you will find lower satisfaction with the amount of choices that are doing the rounds. So now, research actually helps us get those particular insights to work as marketers. Fewer options can actually increase the sales. This is the first thing that research shows us. Empirical research shows that in many instances, offering fewer options can make purchases more likely. Simplified choice environments reduce the decision paralysis and actually provokes action. People genuinely take the plunge and they take the step, they open their wallets, they pay, they take the product home. Also, there are chances of lower returns because curated assortments often lead to lower rates of product returns. Consumers make those decisions in less complex environments and they tend to be more confident in the choices that they have actually made. Higher customer satisfaction is also observed, where consumers frequently report greater satisfaction when purchases are made from smaller, more carefully curated assortments. So, which means that the choice and the ability to live with that particular choice becomes easier for customers. This is the satisfaction that drives loyalty and gets them to come back at your doorstep, buying more and on frequent intervals and getting more people to actually join in. So, this is the precursor to loyalty. They become advocates when they believe that what you're going to offer them is exactly what they needed. Now, in order to understand strategically how assortment decisions are made, let's look at this framework. At the very base is consumer goals and expertise, which help understand what is it that drives the purchase decisions. So, there has to be a very core factor which gives us consumer goals, how well they are experts in that particular field and how soon or how well they can actually decide upon the purchase item. The next part to this is customer centric offerings. How are the products aligned with consumer needs and abilities? And finally, overarching all of these is the market success. where you optimize the assortments, driving the sales and satisfaction of consumers. So, an assortment size emphasizes that managers should consider two key factors when designing these product lines: consumer goals, which comes from your research, and consumer expertise, also something which you can look from usage and attribute studies, which is again received through research. These are essential factors and they form the foundation for developing product line strategies and create customer-centric offerings, which finally lead towards market success. Now, one of the brands which has done this to the hilt is Apple. The entire Apple saga is a story of innovation and product creation to the extreme. In 1976, Apple Computers was founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and they had a mission to make computers more user-friendly for both home and work use. In 1977, Apple II was launched, where they revolutionized the computer industry with the first ever color graphics, leading to explosive growth which was unforeseen. By 1980, Apple went public and followed its tremendous success and expanded the market itself. And between 83 and 85, Jobs hired John Sculley as the CEO, who later fired Jobs as a dramatic corporate conflict actually ensued. Jobs was somebody who was at the core an innovator, and he believed that the right kind of impetus given in design would lead to a product which would not be missed by consumers. Later on, towards a generalization, and that is typically what happens when you bring in a generalist for that role, is where Apple started to veer. They became Me Too's for a while, and that's when their performance also dipped. But by that time, Jobs was already scuttled out of the organization. When he later came back, we hear of the entire decline and rebirth story of Apple. Market deteriorated for Apple because it focused on short-term profits. When you get the generalist in, this is what happens, and rather than on innovation. This led to a gradual decline in market position. By 96, experts questioned whether Apple was even viable to begin with. Then started a strategic acquisition. To address its innovation gap, Apple purchased Next Software, a company founded by Jobs himself after his departure from Apple. Because he was the founder, he had the DNA at his core. His leadership brought back that particular general understanding of which way Apple should move, and Steve Jobs returned as an interim CEO, officially becoming CEO in 2000. And his visionary aspects brought the leadership back to the company that he had initially co-founded. The Renaissance period from then began when Jobs forged an alliance with Microsoft for office software, introduced the iBook for consumers and education, and launched distinctive iMacs with colorful translucent designs, which became the talk of the town. It completely shifted the way consumers would look at what design aspects would feature in a personal computer. Now, product innovation as a study stems from that particular point. The first thing introduced by Jobs was beautiful design, things that you could not miss. It was something which was so attractive that it caught people's eye effortlessly and merged form and function seamlessly. So what was available outside as an aesthetic offering was also robust inside to offer the functional requirements. It also did something very, very bravely. It simplified the complexity of a personal computer. It made that technology accessible to everyone. And then they started down the path of identifying user needs. They focused on solving real problems of people. So over the past 2 decades, Apple has invested heavily in research and development and has become a world leader in innovative product launches. The company transformed how people listen to music, play video games, talk on the phone, and even read books. So Apple's revolutionary products include the very, very famous iPod, the iMac, the iPhone, and iPad. All of these are innovations that helped Apple top the Fortune magazine's World Most Admired Countries list for many years in a row. The first thing that they brought about was the iPod. Why was it a phenomenon? because it got the culture right. It became the Walkman of the 21st century. In the earlier century, Sony's Walkman and later Discman were riders of the cassette and CD technologies which people could keep on their person and move about. The iPod shrunk that large sized device to something which you could hold in the palm of your hand, and it introduced many consumers to Apple and initiated a series of monumental product innovations in its distinctive design format, which was core to what they were doing. The iPod exemplified Apple's leading edge design skills, how it looked, how it felt when you touched it. The operating system was like no other device on the market. Yes, soon a lot of other players like Zune and various other copies from iWa, etc. entered the market, but Apple had a runaway lead on all these players. Also, the music experience, according to musician John Mayer, was like people feel they're walking through musicology when they were using iPods, leading them to listen to more music with greater passion. And that was core to what the iPod was designed to be. And that is what it was all about. The innovation led them to that kind of an experience. iTunes came next, which was the digital marketplace innovation, and it was a hardware plus software integration, which was critical, and it was the stepping stone for whatever Apple has achieved thereafter. In 2003, it was launched, and iTunes Store introduced a software-based digital marketplace for music to the world. In 2008, they were completely dominating the US market and became the largest music vendor in the US. By 2010, it was a global leader and achieved the status as largest music vendor in the entire world. So Apple achieved its impressive market domination through a combination of shrewd product innovation and clever marketing. The marketing effort appealed both to Apple fans and people who had not used Apple products in the past, expanding the company's reach to new consumer segments, because that is where the growth really stemmed from. Apple expanded its channel through a strategy and expanded first in retail presence. So they gave mass electronic retailers like Best Buy and Circuit City, they gave them space in the channels, and they quadrupled the number of outlets they were absolutely visible and available on. So they increased the number of physical purchase locations, the points of sale, if you will, where Apple products could be purchased from. This was creating the necessary supply chain and logistics network with retail facing the consumer, which would work to their advantage later on. They also created cross-cultural appeal by simple messaging that worked worldwide. They did not go into too much of cleverness, but they kept it simple, they kept it honest, and they kept it so relatable that everybody came in, which was through pull advertising. Pull is where the consumer is so intrigued and so taken in by a particular brand's communication that it tends to pull the brand closer. They approach the brand by first name. They enter the brand space on their own, rather than the brand having to push or herd people into its community. And this developed through memorable campaigns like the Silhouettes, which got Apple's iPods out there. The Silhouettes campaign featured silhouettes of people listening to and dancing with their iPods, and it appeared all over the world. It was very simple, it was very stark, it was visual, and people naturally connected to those particular imagery markers. This simple message worked across cultures and portrayed the iPod as a cool thing or a gadget to own and carry on your person. And this reached beyond anybody who enjoyed music. As the iPod's popularity grew, a halo effect helped increase the market share of whatever else Apple was trying to put out there. So one product doing well brings the necessary prestige back to the organization, and it washes over everything else. Now, Apple currently sells most in the form of the iPhone, and then they go about selling the Mac, the iPad, the wearables, the services, whatever else. Services are again fairly large because they cover a lot of products. But the iPhone alone today is responsible for nearly 50% of Apple's revenue. As a result of the iPod successes and the growing importance of non-computer products, in 2007, Apple officially changed its name from Apple Computers to Apple Inc. because they wanted to be available on a variety of platforms for various products. This name change also helped communicate the company's extended focus beyond traditional computers alone, and now they got into a variety of consumer electronics and digital services. The next thing, again, this was very famous through Steve Jobs' PR event, where he launched the iPhone 3. Now, iPhone redefined mobile communication from the ground up. Prior to this, the Nokias of the world were doing famously well with their QWERTY buttoned keypad mobile phones, which ran Symbian as an operating system. The iPhone's design was the first thing which reached out to people. It had revolutionary design. It was launched in 2007 with the touchscreen pad. It had a virtual keyboard and it had internet and email capabilities, which created unprecedented consumer excitement because now you could literally carry a personal computer in the palm of your hand. Again, there was rapid adoption because it sold 1 million units in just 74 days, which is a milestone that took the iPod 2 years to achieve. So that was the sheer scale at which the iPhone broke everything that had come prior to it. It also allowed carrier switching. So half of iPhone buyers switched to AT&T because different wireless carriers were not providing it, and some paying fees to break contracts just to own an iPhone was also something which was seen amongst people. AT&T was the first carrier which carried the iPhone. It created a market disruption and it defied any analyst's concerns about AT&T's exclusivity and high initial price, transforming the entire smartphone industry forever. So this was how iPhone broke through that particular space and created history. The next part which they brought about was the iPad. Now, iPad is a tab and created a completely new device category. It was a wider, bigger screen. It had the touch capabilities. Nowadays, iPads also have the pencil, which you can take as an extra accessory, and you can access that particular space very, very nicely. It allows you as a user to unleash your creative power, and this multi-touch device combined the look and feel of the iPhone with the power of the laptop computer or MacBook. And this enabled users to create movies, music and art with unprecedented ease, something which was not thought possible prior. It also became an educational tool and it transformed the learning experiences, giving students and educators access to interactive textbooks, educational apps and research tools, all of it in a portable format. So all of these factors came to the aid of iPad and its unprecedented success. Again, it had professional versatility also, from building wind turbines to studying coral reefs and making mountain climbing safer. Apple's marketing highlighted how iPad empowered professionals across industries. It also managed through its communication to do something novel. It never sold product features. It did not say how good its camera was in terms of what quality or in terms of what glass or in terms of what lens it carried. So product features were a big no-no. Instead, what they did was look at the outcome and users. These are the parts that they celebrated in their communication. And these are aspects which really helped iPhone and iPad jump out into the public space and get people reflected as how they would look if they'd used these particular devices. It gave them that hope and sense of what the future could be if they partook of the Apple family bandwagon. Now, next comes in Apple Watch, and with that, wearable technology walks into our world. It had a 2015 launch. Apple introduced its first wearable device offering fitness tracking and health-oriented capabilities. It had a very clear health focus and was positioned as a personal health assistant, monitoring activity, heart rate and encouraging wellness for people. It had a slow start to success, but with that initial sluggish adoption, it became one of Apple's fastest growing product categories, and nowadays it leads the entire pack when it comes to wearables in terms of the value. Market leadership was an easy get after having sold about 30 million units in 2019, and it established its dominance in the entire smartwatch category. Now, Apple was committed to innovation right from the time that they had founded the company. They lost their track in the middle, but with Jobs' re-entry, it again went back into the original supposed direction. They had created a pool of $18 billion and more in R&D investment. That is a humongous chunk of money, which also helped them rise to the #1 pole position in the industry. Having done this and having done it by 2020 actually, they consistently ranked as the world's most innovative company, and they had 2,700 plus patents. This gave a huge new technology based advantage to Apple, which other competition could not break past. And it was true to its mission of staying at the forefront of user-friendly consumer technologies. It still invests heavily in artificial intelligence and machine learning. The company used to and still increases its R&D budget to stay ahead of the competition in many areas like digital assistants, with Siri competing against Amazon's Alexa and Google Assistant. Now, Apple has a product line strategy very clearly. It focuses on a product portfolio, and unlike competitors who offer dozens of models, Apple maintains a carefully curated product line with clear differentiation between each model type. This simplifies the consumer choice, and it still addresses different market segments so that each feels that they have been catered to by the brand. It does not lose its premium positioning, come what may. Apple consistently positions its product at the premium end of the market, avoids low margin entry level offerings, and something that could dilute the brand overall. This strategy maintains profit margins and brand prestige throughout. Even their lowest priced product is definitely on a premium side of things. Also, they have intertwined with the ecosystem. So products are designed to work seamlessly together, which is what we talked about, the hardware and the software doing a nice little tango. And they have created an ecosystem. Again, we've talked about the App Store, which was an offshoot from the iTunes Store. So all of these things were things in the making. They evolved as things went along. And this increases the barrier and switching costs for any consumer or prospect. And it encourages multiple product ownership so that you're not only limited to a phone. You get to a phone, then you get to a tab, then you get to a Mac, then you get to the AirPods, you get to the watch. You buy a lot many Apple products. And this integration strategy drives additional sales and customer loyalty and investment in the brand Apple. A similar brand which has done well is Casper, which did something disrupting using the big mattress story. Now, in 2013, 4 members of a New York City venture accelerator conceived of Casper as an alternative to Big Mattress, which was currently the dominant manufacturers, Serta, Simmons, Tempur-Pedic and Sealy. So, the problem that they identified, which they wanted to solve, was that there were 2 key industry problems. Mattresses were priced too high, up to $2,500 for a queen mattress, and they had a painful in-store purchasing experience. So, it was highly priced, and the entire effort to buy a mattress was too painful for consumers, both of which was actually a problem. But since nobody was listening to consumers, so nobody was solving these areas. They began by solving these 2 things. They introduced their business model, which was an innovation of what was available. Casper applied Warby Parker's direct-to-consumer model to mattresses and eliminated traditional retail markup and in-store shopping frustrations, and got the product straight to households with people trying them and then buying them. So it had a one perfect mattress strategy, and it did not mean that they had just one offering as a mattress. It meant that one perfect mattress existed for every single consumer or prospect. So there was a value pricing, which is 1/3 of the big mattress prices. There was innovative delivery, and it was compressed into a UPS, which was a delivery service, UPS shippable box, and there was simplified choices for consumers. So one perfect mattress for everyone. Casper designed its first mattress to be the one perfect mattress for everyone. This mattress was composed of resilient foam that could be compressed into the largest box size that could be handled by UPS, so it would reach directly to consumers' homes. This combination of one mattress and a simple delivery method meant consumers had an easy decision-making process, and the company enjoyed significant logistical benefits that kept their costs down as well. Casper always stayed customer-centric, and their experience also spoke very, very loudly of the same. The delivery was made free. So mattresses shipped directly to customers' homes at no additional cost, eliminated the delivery fee common with traditional retailers. There was a 100-night trial. So that risk-free sleep trial ensured that people could actually experience a Casper mattress before having to pay for it or before having to accept payment terms for it. And this allowed customers to fully experience the mattress in their own homes for over 3 months, which was a significant amount of time. No other mattress provided that kind of leeway. It also had hassle-free returns, and if consumers weren't satisfied, a customer service agent retrieved the mattress and refunded the money with no questions asked. So it was as simple as things could be, and this got them a lot of traction. The combination of providing a well-designed mattress with a superior shopping experience at a low price point just was too irresistible, and Casper became instantly an attractive choice for customers who were seeking alternatives to traditional mattress shopping. And this helped them create that particular way into people's lives. They also tried marketing with a different approach. What they tried most often was word of mouth. They got their initial focus on generating organic buzz through satisfied customers. They did a lot of outdoor advertising, colorful cartoon imagery on billboards, subways, and taxis nationwide helped people to get closer and be able to adhere to what the communication was from Casper. They also expanded into the newly being experienced digital space. They shifted to that cost-effective online advertising as the company grew, and they also did a lot of content partnerships, which ensured that there were people who were looked out by consumers, and they got sponsored popular podcasts and radio shows to reach that necessary target audience through that content piece. It also had a continuous playful brand identity. Why this playful brand identity was important is because otherwise the entire tedious process of buying a mattress, which the big mattress companies were pushing on to people, was something that needed to be broken. Here they had light-hearted imagery. It advertised colorful ensembles of cartoon people and animals enjoying their sleep on a Casper mattress, creating a playful and approachable brand identity, and the content was extremely relatable. The company ran a weekly series on Instagram stories where they appealed to customers suffering from Monday morning blues and destroyed alarm clocks in spectacular fashion, which conveyed the frustration and showed how the brand understood the exact pain point of the consumer. More than this, they also got into innovative engagement and launched Insomnobot 3000, a chatbot that would send funny text messages to those people who had trouble falling asleep at night. And this extended the brand experience beyond just buying the product and falling to sleep on top of it. The experience endeared the brand to consumers, and it got them to understand that this particular brand was akin to a friend who was looking after their specific interest of going off to a nice long night's sleep. The Casper growth trajectory was therefore phenomenal. It grew initially at a slower pace, but ever since 2016, it went up a trajectory which was simply skyward. Casper enjoyed that rapid sales growth in sales after launch and earned over 600 millions in revenue in just 3 short years. Now, This remarkable trajectory demonstrated the effectiveness of simplified product strategy and innovative direct-to-consumer business model, and that disrupted the traditional mattress industry overall. Casper then got into a product portfolio expansion. Here, as Casper grew, company expanded beyond its initial single mattress strategy, and the product portfolio grew to include now 3 different types of mattresses at various price points, as well as complementary products like pillows, sheets, bed frames, and it got new customers and increased its average order value. And that also helped them reach better distribution through their strategy, which evolved over time. So, their direct-to-consumer initial online sales model eliminated middlemen, kept costs down, and got them easily to people's homes, and adoption was pushed. Then they got into retail partnerships when they were well settled in and expanded through Nordstrom, Target, and Amazon, mostly keeping it still in the retail segment, so that the logistics would still be similar. They also did an omni-channel approach and integrated online, offline customer journeys, and finally they got into physical retail as well, where they opened branded brick and mortar stores for the in-person experience, and now they were ready to welcome and receive consumers in their own element and get them engaged with the brand. The retailers such as Nordstrom, Target, and Amazon helped increase the distribution reach, and competition intensifying, the company opened the first physical retail location to increase visibility and also prestige and build customer loyalty. They also announced plans to expand to over 200 stores by 2021. So this was the journey of Casper, which got them into the space, and what helped them along was quick adoption of technology. So they got their digital engagement strategy going right. Through social media first, they had a lot of interaction where Casper's social media team frequently engaged with customers on platforms which were readily available, where people were actually congregating in terms of community. So they used Facebook, they used Instagram and Twitter, and they created two-way conversations. Remember that when you create dialogue, it's like normal human conversation. So dialogue helps a brand have conversations which are meaningful. And when you do something of that sort, consumers provide you with the necessary feedback. And that feedback helps build better products, improve your systems and services, and it also helps consumers to feel like they are collaborators to the entire brand as such. And this became better than just broadcasting marketing messages, which was a wasteful way of marketing anyway. Now, they also ensured that the experience extended to something called UGC, or user generated content. And here, unboxing became one of the big key drama items that could drive the way consumers were experiencing that particular product. So the company uploaded popular unboxing videos. These unboxing videos showed consumers how the tiny mattresses were and how remarkably they unfold and expand to full size, and this was the prestige and reveal we've talked about prior, and it creates that little magical little experience, and this helped consumers to understand how when from the box it got removed, and it generated lots of shares and engagement, and it became extremely satisfying for consumers to experience that kind of imagery, that kind of unfurling and unboxing experiment, and that gave the brand something which was novel, and in terms of a boost, it gave them a large enough talkable space, and that seriously helped them create a lot much more noise than initially they had planned for. Also, they targeted consumers with retargeting methodology on digital. Casper invested in using internet cookies, which nowadays you can't, but at that point in time, you could very clearly use cookies, and they tracked consumer visits to their website and showed them targeted ads on other websites when they browsed there. Therefore, they maintained the brand's presence, and throughout the consideration process, they gently kept nudging the consumer towards a purchase decision. So, we have also discussed the IDA model in the past. Retargeting works importantly at these 2 points and pushes consumers towards the last action stage. So, that is typically what Casper also did with their digital marketing and content campaigns. The mattress industry woke up to this activity and it responded. In 2013 to 15, Casper, when it disrupted the mattress industry with innovative direct-to-consumer models and single mattress strategy, had other players take up notice. By 2016, Serta Simmons and Tempur Sealy began offering their own beds in a box in response to Casper's success. By 2018, Walmart, the largest retailer in the US, produced Allswell, a digital home brand specializing in mattresses and bedding, and which was directly competing with Casper. Also in 2018, Amazon added its own memory foam mattress to the popular Amazon Basics line, which was their private label. And that leveraged its massive distribution network to try and compete with the famously capable and profitable Casper. So now when you look at product line strategies, when you look at Casper versus Apple, you look at Apple's evolution and Casper's evolution. Apple started with a focused product line, which was computers. This is when Steve Wozniak and Jobs had started the organization. But gradually, they expanded into multiple categories. From Apple computers, they went and became Apple Inc. And here they got in music players, then that evolved into phones, that evolved into tablets. Finally, you've got wearables in the form of watches, you've got AirPods and such like. Each of these products maintains that premium positioning which Apple possesses and integrates it with the larger ecosystem so that Apple products work best when used with another Apple product. This is a given. Beyond this, product lines include multiple options at different price points within each category, but it is still more focused than its competition. So, emphasis on differentiation both in terms of what the products have to offer, how they work together better, how the support from the software side and the app store side is very evident. It became a clear consumer choice. Yes, it was premium, but then the ease of use, the entire ecosystem which it provided became too much of a buy-in for any particular consumer or prospect. On the other hand, Casper evolved by focusing first on the single perfect mattress for everyone strategy. This radical simplification disrupted the market and the industry and was known for overwhelming choice prior. Now it became scuttled down to one single choice, which Casper was doing better than anybody else out there. Again, as the company matured and competition increased, Casper managed to also go into the multiple mattresses mode and gave up lots of models and complementary products which increased their portfolio overall. Also, it evolved from the pure direct to consumer to omni-channel distribution, and finally brick and mortar stores also hit the ground. The increase in this particular direction ensured that they had laddered their success at each point. So, they had grown their success from a basic to an advanced form with more portfolio, and finally they had brick and mortar omni-channel stores. So, the entire experience was built vertically upwards, hand-holding consumers into the newer forms, but not losing the capability of what they had done in the past. So, these factors helped Casper also evolve into a position of strength. Now, from all of these things, the key things marketers need to take home is to understand when to simplify product lines. There are variety of items which are commoditized categories. Now, what are commoditized categories? Commoditized categories differentiate through product experience rather than through features. So these are aspects that people look for and are met by everybody. So these become hygiene factors overall. The hygiene is something which people expect within that particular commodity. However, if you create something, it becomes a differentiated point of view from your brand offerings perspective, and hence it gives you disruptive entry into that particular congested space, but you can create your own niche which has followers coming to your doorstep. And when there are novice customers, you simplify the choices for these customers who are unfamiliar with the category and you bring them quickly into your fold. Now, once you have them, and hopefully if they are younger, then what you can achieve here is lifetime value of the customer. Also, if they go satisfied, the next thing they'll give you is a pat on the back, which is word of mouth marketing. So all of these factors follow that general direction, and both Apple and Casper have demonstrated that simplifying the product lines can be highly effective in certain market conditions when consumers lack the expertise or are facing overwhelming options in the established category space. And a focused product strategy with clear differentiation can cut through whatever else the noise is and create competitive advantage. Now, when to expand product lines, here are certain points where you can also think of competitive defense, where you prevent competitors from targeting your particular gaps. Here, you also look at diverse segments and address different needs across consumer groups, and you have got expert consumers who offer more options for more knowledgeable customers. These are times when you have to study the audience and understand this is when to expand product lines. In the previous example, you were shying away from it. Now, these are times when you should actually do the expansion of product lines. Both these matured, and when they expanded their product lines, they also managed to address different market segments as they grew in stature, and they were able to defend themselves against competition. Apple also expanded into multiple product categories and created its own ecosystem. Casper's addition of different mattress models and complementary products increased the customer lifetime value and market reach. So, in the journey of a brand, in the journey of a product, you have to balance that variety and simplicity. You have to look at what level your customer is in. That consumer expertise will help you match assortment to the target consumer's next knowledge level. And experts can appreciate variety. Novices, however, experience simplicity as their first choice. Then there are purchase goals, where you consider whether customers are seeking that perfect option where more variety helps, or a good enough solution where simplicity works better. Again, all of these things are to be led by research. Then there is a market positioning thought process where new entrants often benefit from focused offerings and clearly differentiate from incumbents so that they can create that little blue ocean niche for themselves. And established players may need broader lines to defend market share. And finally, you've got operational efficiency, where the balance the marketing benefits of varieties against operational costs of managing complex product lines and inventory. So hence you also at times simplify because of these factors. So when you're implementing a customer-centric strategy, these are things that you have to keep into mind. First, segment your customers. So we've talked about segmentation, targeting, positioning. All of these things lead into the product story. You segment your customers, you analyze your decision journeys, you weigh which one will work better for you, and then maybe design tiered offerings and curate the experience. Maybe even time the exposure when you launch certain variants and how you allow people to experience those as they get more and more invested into the brands. And as you assort your brands at a going rate, you assort their effectiveness overall, and you look at the conversion rate, where you see how many of the people who took to browsers will actually become buyers. A decline may indicate that there is choice overload and that is causing decision paralysis. Obviously, something to be investigated by research. Again, the return rate defines how a product actually works in people's minds and indicates how satisfied they are. If it's high, then people are obviously not very satisfied with what you have on offer. So, high returns may suggest the customer is struggling to select the right option also. Again, something that can be found out using research. The decision time measures how long customers spend making that particular selection, and excessive time may actually indicate confusion rather than engagement with the product. And finally, there is obviously surveys for customer satisfaction. So, you gather the feedback and select the process, not just the products, and you see which particular friction points affect you in the entire decision journey. So, the key takeaways of why less is more. You can challenge the conventional wisdom of throwing everything and hoping something sticks. So, that is something which brands can clearly wean themselves away from. You can consider how well your customer has expertise in that particular product domain, and you can balance your growth and focus simultaneously towards the end result. And when you are looking at creating something which is yours and defensible, you can create a clear path of differentiation when you simplify the product offering. So, with that, we will move into the last segment of designing product value and managing products as we go into the next phase. Until then, this is me signing out.
Hi, I'm Chitwan Lalji, a PhD student of Health Economics under the supervision of Dr. Debayan Pakrashi from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kanpur. In one of my essays, I'm interested in understanding the relationship between consumption of fruits and vegetables and various health indicators. Health indicators, both subjective and objective health indicators like mental health, self-assessed health, various measures of blood pressure and various measures of cholesterol. Measures of blood pressure like systolic and diastolic BP. You have your incidence of high BP, MAP, and incidence of high MAP. And as far as cholesterol is concerned, I have tried to concentrate more on total cholesterol, good cholesterol, and incidence of high cholesterol. Now, before I go on to what have been my major contributions and various policy implications, I would like to briefly tell you about the policy initiatives of WHO and various countries. The WHO, that is the World Health Organization, it started with a campaign of 5 a day. That is, you should have 5 portions of fruits and vegetables per day. That would be approximately, you could say, 400 grams of fruits and vegetables. Now, a portion, before we go further, I'll just tell you what exactly is a portion. One portion is equivalent to a medium-sized apple, or one small glass of fruit juice, which is approximately 150 milliliters, and maybe 3 teaspoons of vegetables. So, the WHO went with a 5 a day campaign, which was further taken up by various countries. Countries like UK, Netherlands, Germany, Norway, they adopted the 5 a day policy, while some went for expansionary dietary policies like France, Australia, Canada, Denmark. So, for example, Australia, it went for 2+5 policy, in which it said that you should consume 2 portions of fruits and 5 portions of vegetables per day. And USA went for a policy of fruits and vegetables more matters. That is, you must consume more and more fruits and vegetables. Now, irrespective of these expansionary dietary policies and dietary propagations, it has been found that only 28% of women and 25% of men, they actually meet the recommended dietary norms of 5 a day portion. So, the major contribution of my work is firstly to find an association between fruits and vegetables, whether there exists a relationship between fruits and vegetables and health indicators, and if they exist, whether due to heterogeneity in the data. So, I will be doing it according to age, by gender, and by your weight. So, apart from that, I will go for policy recommendations, in which I am basically studying how much fruits and vegetables matter. Apart from that, which type matters more. So for that, I have taken data from the Health Survey of England. Health Survey of England is an annual survey which takes data, which conducts information regularly on demographic and socioeconomic characteristics. You have your lifestyle behaviors like an individual smokes or doesn't smoke, alcohol consumption, you have your sedentary and physical activities, and you have various health indicators also which have been collected. Before I go on to what exactly is my research, I would like to concentrate more on fruits and vegetables, like what kind of questions were asked in the survey. Questions like, what kind of fresh fruit do you eat? Did you eat any dried fruit yesterday? Don't count dried fruits in cereals, cakes. Apart from that, for vegetables, they asked how many tablespoons of vegetables did you eat yesterday? So approximately after this whole survey was conducted, data was converted into portions of fruits, and like for example, 3 tablespoons of vegetables is equivalent to 1 portion. So data was converted and provided to the users, that is us, from the UK Data Health Survey. So the major contributions of my paper is that I found a strong negative association between intake of fruits and self-assessed health, then various measures of blood pressure like mean arterial pressure, high blood pressure, systolic and diastolic BP, and your total cholesterol. Apart from that, I have found a strong positive association between consumption of vegetables and good cholesterol. So it is recommended in a way that if you want to control your blood pressure, you must consume more and more fruits. And as far as vegetables are concerned, they impact your good cholesterol. Apart from that, I went in for a falsification test. A falsification test is basically conducted to know whether the model that you have adopted and the conclusions that you are drawing are not spurious. So if a falsification test is done to know, in a way it is tested by seeing an indicator, a health indicator which is not being impacted by your consumption of fruits and vegetables, and then we see whether there is significant result or not. If there is no significant result, that means your model is good and your results are non-spurious. So what we did is, for falsification test, we took ear complaints and infectious diseases. Now ear complaints, like if you are deaf since birth or you have some kind of imbalance, body imbalance, that is not being impacted by your consumption of fruits and vegetables, and we did find insignificant results. Apart from that, infectious diseases like HIV, AIDS, etc., we found similar insignificant results, indicating that our results are non-spurious. Apart from that, we went, since there was a lot of heterogeneity in the data, like by gender, by age and by weight, we did the regression analysis. We found results which stated that as far as fruits are concerned, it impacts a male's health more than a female's health. So it is basically said a man should consume more fruits to impact his health, whereas as far as vegetables are concerned, they impact a women's health more. But this has been only seen as far as cholesterol is concerned, the various measures of cholesterol like total cholesterol, good cholesterol and your incidence of getting high cholesterol. Now after this, we went in for a policy implication, and in the policy implication we tried to find 2 policy implications: what matters and exactly how much portion matters. So as far as how much portion matters, we have found that on an average 5 or more portions of fruits impact your overall health, that is your self-assessed health, your MAP, your incidence of high MAP and incidence of high BP. But if you want to have a good mental health, so you can optimize your mental health by consuming 3 or 4 portions of fruits as well. And similarly, as far as self-assessed health and total cholesterol is concerned, an individual must consume 4 to 5 portions to optimally have the impact of consumption of fruits. Apart from that, vegetables have had a very little impact on your health. It only impacts your incidence of getting high MAP and high BP, and it's seen that only it impacts when you consume 5 or more portions of fruits. So an optimum consumption of 5 or more portions of fruits and vegetables are recommended, but fruits have a more impact on your overall health, on various measures like self-assessed health, mental health, your various measures of blood pressure and various cholesterol levels. Another thing that we find is which type of fruit matters. It has been seen that all size fruits, they impact your self-assessed health, your systolic and diastolic blood pressure, your mean arterial pressure, your high BP and incidence of getting high MAP and high cholesterol. But we find that as far as frozen fruits or canned fruits are concerned, they help in regulating your incidence of getting high MAP or high BP, but it has a trade-off. That means there is something negative happening. It reduces the good cholesterol in your body. Apart from this, if you have an incidence of getting high cholesterol, it is recommended that you must consume fruit juices because it has a impact in reducing your probability of getting high cholesterol. And dried fruits, they impact your self-assessed health. As far as vegetables are concerned, very little impact has been seen. It has only been seen in case of portion of salads and its association with self-assessed health. Another thing that they have seen is vegetables in composite, they have an association with good cholesterol. So overall, my research basically says that there is an association between consumption of fruits and vegetables and various health indicators, and it is highly recommended that an individual, in order to be healthy, must consume 5 or more portions of fruits and 5 or more portions of vegetables per day. But fruits have a more impact on your overall health. Apart from that, all size fruits, they have a better impact on your overall health, your mental health, various measures of blood pressure and cholesterol. So, thank you.